So we are recording now. I will go over the questions, some in more detail than the others. And if you have general comments about the questions, please ask those now. If you have questions about how I graded your work, for that you will have to email me separately. The reason being, we don't want to spend time for individual questions during class time, but I will definitely listen to what you have to say regarding the grading part of the exam. I mean, whatever questions you have regarding how I graded, you can definitely ask them, but not as a general question during class time. Okay, so let me go ahead and share the multiple choice part of the exam. I'm trying to find, yeah, okay. All right. It starts with question 4. Python programs have the extension .py. It is an interpreted language, so true for both of these. If you have exponentiation, it is evaluated from right to left. So the answer is B. 7% 4 gives you the value 3 because that is a remainder after division. A should be 10 here so that this will print 0 because M is 10, 10 minus 10. And here we have A5, B8. So this should be A plus B star 2. 16 plus 5, 21. And we have to print 7. So this C should be 7. So D should be 14. So set variable x to the average of the values in variables A, B, and C. X equals, in parentheses, A plus B plus C divided by 3. And here, what is the smallest value of B, for which we get 9 into A. So B is the only unknown on the right-hand side. 35 divided by 3 will give you 11. 11%. So, okay, these are evaluated from left to right. Slash is done first. So you get 11. Then you do the mod with something and then do the multiplication. So this mod should result in the value 3 because then it will be 3 times 3 and you will get 9 here. So what is the smallest value of B? Since we have 11 here, to get a remainder of 3, we should divide by, we should do the mod with 4. If you do the mod with 8, then also you get 3, but that is not the smallest value. So the answer is 4. Which are the valid identifiers here? Lower limit is fine. This is fine. You can start with underscore, although we don't do that by convention in our programs. This has caret in it, so this is not allowed. You can't start with a digit. This is acceptable by the Python interpreter. This is also acceptable. So these are all, so A, B, E, and F should be the ones. A string literal can begin with a double quotes or a single quote, so the correct answer is C. A numeric literal may start with a negative symbol but cannot contain commas. So the correct answer is A. Program instructions are executed on the CPU. Answer is D. The memory is not part of the CPU, but the control unit and arithmetic and logic unit are. So the correct answer is B here. The electromagnetic disk is divided into a number of tracks, and each is divided into a number of sectors. So the correct answer is A. The person primarily responsible for formalizing the notion of computation was Alan Turing. Fortran, Python, and C++ are languages. Unix is the right choice here because it is an operating system. Well, I think the correct answer is suggested by the word network here. If you design and build a data communication network, you are basically a network architect. C. ACM Code of Ethics requires that a member of the ACM perform work only in areas of competence. You don't have to use the most recent programming languages. There are lots and lots of programs using old languages, and there have to be people who maintain those. So you don't have to use the latest programming languages. No. You should be competent in doing what you're doing. Introducing pseudocode, it doesn't increase the time required to come up with a solution. Almost that is not true. Is the last? No, it is definitely not the last step. It separates the problem solving into two parts, where you come up with a design first and then translate that design into code. So the correct answer is C. You still have to test your program. Test data is used to determine the output produced. Is used to determine if the output produced by the program matches the expectations. That is true. The ability to execute multiple programs is called multi-programming. Which of the following is a low-level programming language that has a one-to-one correspondence with the machine instructions? The answer is assembly language. If you require 16 bytes of storage, in bits, it will be 16 times 8, which is 128. B. Unicode is a universal encoding scheme for all characters in all languages. So there is a corresponding number for every character, and that number is in binary in the computer using different encoding techniques. Which of the following statements are incorrect? This doesn't have the right parentheses. There's a mismatch. You can't put a text on the left-hand side of an assignment statement. You can't have an expression on the left-hand side. So all of the above are incorrect. So do you have any questions about these multiple choice questions and true-false questions? Anybody?
Can you go back to number 10?
10. Yes. It is to find the average of A, B, and C. So X should be equal to A plus B plus C divided by 3.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions about the questions? Okay. Let's then look at the answer to each of these other 3 questions that required you to write a program. So let me go ahead and share that. This file should be available to you under the exams folder, under content, and the questions or the answers are labeled. This is the first question's answer, second question and third question. There are two parts, so I put a space between the two. This asks for the width of the shelf, the average book thickness, and the number of books is gotten by dividing shelf width by book thickness. You don't want fraction of a book, so I put // here. If you really wanted the number without even a decimal point, then the right thing to do is put int here. I considered asking for that, but then I decided that maybe a complication that some students may not really know. So if you want to get the number, for example, 15 without a decimal point, then this is definitely going to give you a number with a decimal point because these are floats. And that 15.0 can be converted to an integer by calling this function int. Okay. And you have to print it in this way, the output. The second question asks for the room length and the tile length, and then the edge tiles would be the remainder after division by the tile length of the room length. So if the room length is 32 and tile length is say 9, 32% 9 would give you 5. That is the remainder after division, and you divide by 2 to get the size of the cut. So that is going to be 2.5 inches. Now, the third question, you have to draw a circle with a radius of 50 at center 50, minus 50. You shouldn't be going to 50, minus 50. That is a mistake. You have to go to a place, and that would be on the circumference. So I'm going to 50, 0, and then you have to set your direction appropriately, because the center will be to the left of your direction by this much, by the radius. So if I'm going west, my y coordinate would be 50 units, 50 pixels below 0. So that would be at minus 50. So that is how you should draw a circle. Then the second part of it asks for the x and y coordinates and the radius. And I am doing something very similar here, as you can see. Here, I put 50, 0, right? So I'm putting x, y plus radius, because this is also the target center's y coordinate plus the radius. The target center was at 50, minus 50. That is, the y coordinate was negative 50. Add the radius to that and you get this. Similarly here, the center should be having a y coordinate of y. So I add radius to that. And of course, I don't need to fill, I shouldn't be filling. So, and the color should be black. So if you need to get the center at a specific place, you have to know how the center is found by Python using Turtle Graphics. That is a little tricky. We went over this when we discussed the rainbow color problem, and it was also on the video for that particular lecture, lecture 4, how the circle center is found. That is the only really difficult part of Turtle Graphics. The rest of the whole thing is fairly straightforward. So do you have any questions about these problems, the three problems here? Okay, then let's close this. Let me say a few things about the lab for today. Let me go ahead and pull it up. That may be the easiest thing to do. Give me a second. Oh yeah, I have it here. So you can find this particular document under labs as usual. Now, notice a few things here. I have emphasized some stuff here. Pay attention. And oops, this is the wrong, I mean, this is somebody's submission. So you have to, this is not right. I mean, let me go ahead and say, okay, you need to fill out this table and notice that I have emphasized something here, weight in newtons. And see what we are reading in. So pay attention to the details. That is always important when you are solving problems on the computer. It is not enough to just know programming. You have to be patient, read documents, understand the requirements clearly, and the details are as important as the concepts and major techniques. So that is one of the difficulties with computer science. You need to know the overall techniques. You should be able to read documents and understand them. And you also have to pay a lot of attention to the details. And be very careful when you fill this table, okay? Yeah, I have put, be careful. I mean, there are traps because you have to clearly understand what these things mean. Okay, so spend some time understanding those sentences. The other thing is, let me go ahead and oops. All right, you have to fill out this table, and the typical question is, what is this column for? Okay, this column is saying, the column heading is obviously why this test. Why are you using this as the mass? Why? I mean, this is the test data, the mass. The question is, why are you testing using this? The reason should be so that you can get all combinations of the problem taken care of. That is, this program is supposed to print some messages under certain conditions because it is on if statements, right? So what should you be printing under a certain condition is not very difficult, but it has to be precise. You have to test all possible conditions. So all the test data together should test all the conditions. So what does each test achieve? Okay. And what messages would you get displayed if you use that particular test? That is what this part is all about. And places where you will find places where you can make mistakes is not understanding these situations, not paying attention to the requirements here. Look for these italicized things, okay? Then the other place, which is probably beyond all of us, is the fact that you are going to get some errors even if your program is working correctly. Unfortunately, that is a result of the way numbers are represented inside the machine. There is not much we can do about it today, okay? So you can see that we are going to do some computations like this, mass times 9.8. And some numbers cannot be represented precisely inside the machine. And because of that, there will be very minute errors between what should be computed and what is actually computed by the machine, okay? If you want to get 10 in the machine, and if it doesn't produce 10, but if it produces 10.00000001, then the two are not going to be equal, right? So things may not work out even if you write your program correctly. So don't be worried too much about it. There isn't much we can do, right? That is because not all decimal numbers can be represented accurately in the binary number system which is used inside the machine. Okay, so don't get upset about that. I can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about it. We'll just have to live with it. It is a huge topic of study for people who work on these kinds of problems in scientific computations and so on. Okay. So you might actually find that when you get your pay, it may be 1 cent less, or when you get your interest from the bank, once in a while, I have found myself, there is an error of 1 cent. That is because of all these kinds of errors. Okay. All right. Any questions before we start on the class exercise? Okay. Then let me go ahead and stop recording here.